What is the number one thing that you attribute to the herd you have now? When you started, what is the smartest move you made out of the gate?
The smartest move I made was when John and Hoffman, Black and Gray, the greatest breeders in the industry at that time, and pretty much my mentors getting started. But when Johnny died, El Coyote Ranch bought all of Johnny's stuff. Well, as soon as they hit El Coyote, Pam and I hit the road, and that's El Coyote. There was 2 cows in his herd that I just loved. A cow named Delta Bunny, and then a butler cow that was a drug powder of grade 54. Her name was Delta Sage. Well, we went down to buy those 2 cows, and we bought them. Well, while I was there, Rick Rainey was the ranch manager at that time, and he gave me a computer printout of every cow on the ranch. They just bought the Hoffman herd, the Ace Cattle Company herd, the herd from Kansas, the Doherty herd. They bought the Collier herd. Well, they had 5 of the best herds in the industry. There's about 800 head of cattle on the ranch out of those 5 herds. I ran home. It took me 3 weeks to tear that computer printout down, and I picked out 11 cows that had produced the best heifers on the ranch, and I went back and I bought all those heifers. And that took my herd to another level immediately.
Any questions, anybody? I think we could kind of go down the line here, and let's just talk about how long we've been in the business and how much wisdom going in that direction. But I got in the business in 1992. I don't know how many years that is, but anyway, and Jimmy, you got in 1987. Bob, when did you get in?
Well, I bought my first long-horn cow in '78. I went to buy a 2-year-old stud, and when I pulled in the driveway, this guy that owned the place, he was wringing wet with sweat and really upset. And he bought a bull and a heifer from Merrill Dickinson, and the bull was jumping fences, and he had a lot of neighbors that was running through their water lines, and they were all fixing the sewage. And he said, I'd sell these things for market price. And I said, what's that? He said, $400 a piece. So I bought the stud and I bought the piece. That was my start in the lawnmower. I lived in Nebraska then. I didn't get serious about them. I borrowed a bull from the U.S. up in Ibrera, and I kept all the heifers. And when I moved to Oklahoma in '85, that's when I started going to sales and getting interested. I noticed my gut was having, so I got one of all of them and started over.
Hudson Longhorns got into this in 2003, and then I stumbled into it in 2009 kind of by accident. Started out kind of with just help Bill out until he could find somebody, and that never did materialize. So here I am 15 and a half years later.
I got in 1988.
Okay, well, good deal. So there's a lot of wisdom up here, and we're ready to answer questions. We know there's a lot of new people in the breed. I mean, we were just talking a minute ago, we used to go to these sales and stuff like that, and we knew everybody there, but there's so many new faces out there. We feel like that there's a lot of people maybe that would have questions, maybe new breeders and such as that maybe we could answer questions. And, yes, okay. Yeah. Let's get you the microphone, just a second.
you recommend looking for? How do you make those choices? There's a lot of bulls here selling semen. What as a new breeder are some of the things that you should be looking for in a bull for that season?
I know, look at a bull, you see what they look like standing there. That ain't gonna get you over there. I mean, what you're looking for is that bull's ability to pass the traits that you want on to its offspring. And I mean, a lot of people, they go from bull to bull just because they like the way, it's pretty bull this time, things like that. But as far as I'm concerned, I demand that they give me common, to look at them and be similar to them. That's why I think my program is fairly. I'd like one to look like him.
Does this work? I think first and foremost, when I'm looking at a bull, number one is I'm going to go not only pick that bull apart as far as structural soundness, scrotal development, I'm also going to go look at the dam of that bull. I learned from a young kid in the Angus business that if I didn't like the mother of that bull, I'd damn sure not go like the calves out of that bull. And that's over the years kind of consistently held true with a lot of the cattle. Every now and then you'll get an outlier out there that I've seen some of these bulls that I look at that I'm really not that high on, but then I see daughters out of that bull that I absolutely love. So not all bulls breed the phenotype. So I'd caution you a little bit on that, but I think coming out of the Angus breed and getting into this breed, that I see a lot of people that horn is what drives this market, and sometimes we overlook a bull that has some issues with him that any other breed would have probably sent that bull to the sale barn. It's real hard sometimes to give up on a bull because he does have a lot of horn. Maybe he'll produce the horn, maybe he won't. But I personally, coming out of the Angus breed, have tried to clean these cattle up a little bit, make them structurally more sound. I think scrotal circumference in a bull is highly inherited in his females. You'll get early onset puberty in these heifers. These heifers will be a lot higher fertile cattle than bulls with a smaller scrotal circumference. I look at a lot of the semen that's sold in this industry that, in my opinion, is marginal quality semen. Like I said, going to any of your British breeds of cattle, your continental breeds of cattle, none of that semen would have ever been put on the market. It would have been flushed down the toilet, never used. So I guess to each their own, as a breeder, you have to kind of determine which direction you want to go. Is that trait really important to you, or is it not important to you? And I can look around the different herds and I can instantly tell that certain traits aren't important to most people. So that's what makes the world go around. That's why none of us, if we all bred the same kind of cattle, a lot of us wouldn't have a market to sell cattle. So, but I think structural soundness, scrotal circumference, look at that bull's mother. If you have a chance, look at offspring out of that bull. I've never seen that one perfect longhorn bull. I don't think we ever will. So you pick out the traits that are most important to you, you breed to that, then you fix the traits in that next generation with another bull, and you just kind of keep building. And that's about all I can say.
While we're on the subject of bulls, Justin Rombeck in the Legends fraternity, we had to have a BSE on bulls, and I think that's a step forward. I think we need to be showing bulls that can breed cattle and be effective, and I think it's just a step forward that Justin had that as part of his fraternity. I would have, they did the struggle circumference on the bulls, but I wish they'd asked for the motility. That's a very important part of the BLC. That tells you if that bull's going to be able to breed cattle or not. It tells you how potent he is. So I think that was a good move on the part of Justin. And also on the female side, you had to have cattle that was bred by the time they were 30 months old, or have a calf by their side. But I think those things are good for the industry. We don't need to be showing these bulls that are not fertile and can produce. So, good deal.
No. Okay. I think the bulls, this is a great subject because it's probably the most important part of your herd. 50% of the genetics in that calf box can be out of him. I put bulls in two categories. One category is a keeper bull, and one category is a project bull. A keeper bull is a bull that's knocking it out of the park. I'm a fanatic on color and a complete package. I want a lot of horn, I want color, but also I want that conformation, and I want a bull to stand up on his toes. I do not like a back-footed cow, and the fastest way you can get back feet in your herd is a back-footed bull. So I want a bull that stands up on his horns, I want on his toes, I want color, I want horn, and I want a correct horn direction. Now when I talk about two categories, a keeper bull is a bull I'm going to breed for 5 or 6 years because he's a bull that's consistently doing it year in and year out on a variety of cows. A project bull is a bull, he might not be everything I like. I do like the calves he's throwing, and he has a couple characteristics that I want to get into my herd. I may use that little bull one time, and I got all I need. I got a few heifers out of there that I can go on with. But the bulls that are really going to take your herd to another direction, I want color, I want them up on my feet, I want a pretty horn direction, I like a good tip. But now as we talk about horn, we've got all the horn in this industry we need. 80, 90, 100 inch cows. We're going to keep raising more horn by accident. I mean, we got so much horn in the brood. I think it's time to really concentrate on conformation, milk, fertility, and when you talk about milk, I've got a lot of friends in Italy that are in the dairy business. The bull is 50% in producing milk-producing cows. Like those Holstein bulls that produce high-volume milk cows, their semen bring a fortune. So when I buy a bull, it's very important to me that his mother was a good milker. That's step one. If you don't have a good milking cow, you're not going to raise fancy calves. And then color, I think some of the greatest calves in the industry are some of the loudest colored calves in the industry are out of red cows. And I think some of the greatest producing cows in the industry are red. As long as you have a bull that's colorful and will produce color, some of the loudest colored calves you'll raise will be out of them red cows. And I'll always have several red cows in my herd. But when you look at a bull, you want to look at everything. You want to look at feet. You want to look at horn direction. You want to look at color. Conformation. this industry, because now, back before when we just had the home showcase, corn rural. Well, it still makes money. But what really brings money is a complete package, conformation, color, horn, good feed, pretty bags, pretty other attachments. Try to breed for the full package.
I want to take that just one step further, what Bob just said there. I've always said that we look at these cattle and we try to put a value on these cattle. And with us holding a couple sales a year, we get a lot of people call in and some of their expectations on these cattle are, in my opinion, a little bit higher than what I feel like they're worth. And I've always tried to break these cows down into 5 categories, from a 1-star cow to a 5-star cow. And when you look around the breed, I see very, very few what I would consider a 5-star cow. And you can put these in no particular order, but it's based on color, conformation, pedigree, horn, and production. And that's why I say there's very, very few 5-star cows that can put the total package together. But when you do have those kind of cows, in my opinion, those are the cows that are not only cows that demand higher dollar, but they're also program changing cows that can take anybody's program to the next level. So to go back to Bob's point, I agree 110% that we have plenty and plenty of horn on these cattle. I had a talk last week with Craig Perez that runs Arrowhead Cattle Company. And I just asked Craig, I said, have you ever thought about going back and tracking what the tip-to-tip was on a lot of these cows that are now 90 and 100 inches and what those cows were at 2 years of age? And when you look at a lot of these cows that have hit 90 or 100 inches as 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old cows, a lot of those cows weren't over 50 inches at 2 years old. Well, now we've got heifers that are hitting north of 70 at 2 years old. So my point is, you know, with the genetics that we have today, you can about fall out of bed and end up still breeding cows north of 80 inches at maturity. So if you want to be in the driver's seat, you want to look out for the well-being of these cattle that's such a magnificent breed, I think we need to start putting a lot more emphasis on correctness, structural soundness in these cattle, fertility, and the genetics are there. The horn's going to come along for the ride. But there's nothing worse than going out there and looking at a cow that it almost looks like they're in pain because they're walking around with so much damn horn on their head that it can't be comfortable for that cow. And I know you can ask Joe Slideshow. You know, they've skinned some of these steers that are 115, 120 inches, and these cattle have cracks in their skull from carrying the weight of that horn. I'm just saying that I think as breeders and as stewards of the Lord and what He's made these magnificent cattle, it's our job to try to make these cattle a little bit more sound, and we can still enjoy them, whether you like, 85, 90, even 100-inch cows. But I just think that's something we need to really, really pay attention to.
Get this thing to work. Another thing about these cows is a lot of those 90 and 100-inch horn cows are out at 80 and even 70 inch horn cows. Every now and then you'll find that magic cow that's only 70, low 80s, and she's kicking out these 90 and 100-inch horn daughters. Don't ever overlook a cow like that. I've seen several of them in the industry. I could name a few that were really not impressive on one. There's just a handful of them, but boy, did they kick it out. So really evaluate your cows. A great horseman told me once years ago, never judge a broodmare till you've seen 3 colts out of her. After you've seen 3 colts out of her, evaluate them. And if you have the same thing goes with cattle. If you have a cow that has an outstanding calf 3 years in a row, you got a good rip. And you wanna hang on to her. If you get a cow that has a great one and then a couple average ones, that's a decent cow. If you have a cow that has 2 good ones, 1 average one, it's an average cow. But if they don't ever have a good one, they need to go. And I think the smartest thing in your herd is to have a good calling program. But don't call too early. You know, get at least 3 calves out of a cow before you put a judgment on it. And also, take in consideration what she's bred to. If she's bred to a bull that has a reputation as a big producer, I'd be a little tougher on her. If you're breeding her to these young bulls that your test breed might be a little more lenient. But everything's just common sense. Anybody else got some more questions? Yeah, give her the mic.
I think there we go. So along the lines of this conversation, how would we as a breed in the industry move forward with developing our EPDs? Because we're talking about conformation, milking, genetics. We really don't have a great set of EPDs that we can look at, especially as new breeders coming in. So how can we help move that forward as an industry? And, you know, we're talking about bulls. I mean, you can go to an express bull sale and look at all their Angus bulls, see their EPDs. So how can we start moving in that direction with our industry?
One thing about talking about, to me, you don't know anything about a bull until I don't care how good he is or how bad he is. When he has his first set of calves, you can start evaluating him at that point. I think everybody, like I have cows that have their mothers, their grandmothers, and their great-grandmothers. I have several generations of families. And that gives me a great advantage with those families. I've seen 6 generations out of a lot of those cow families where they're predictable. I pretty well know what they're going to have depending on what bull they're bred to. I think a lot of the breeders that's been in this a long time have a strong knowledge. It's not like the beef breeds that have the ATVs or whatever it is, but we have it in our head as breeders. But I do think it would be good to have this industry talking about. But I think right now it's just general knowledge that each breeder has about his herd. Now I guess with buying, selling, and trading, and you got cattle coming and going, and you never keep one long enough to get several calves or 2 or 3 generations out of them, you're not going to be, it's going to be a little bit more of a gamble. I think when you get that cow that you really like what she has, keep that family going, and you're going to be a lot more knowledgeable about what's coming next and what bull will work on.
To talk about
something I want to throw out there for you new breeders. Josh, your question, you said, well, kind of what was a turning point, or what can I remember back going? So I just took, when I got in, I had a love and a passion for these cattle. I just bought I bought something I could afford, and I was moving along there, trying to do the best I could, and I could see I needed to step up to the plate more. So one thing I want to tell you new breeders, if you're really serious, I went out and borrowed money. I mean, don't be afraid to step up there to the plate and buy a good one. And you've got so many breeders out here, you've got such a good group of great people that raise these cattle, they'll help you and they'll give you advice. Buy the best semen you can buy. Buy you half interest in a bull. Because that bull's half of everything that hits the ground. So don't be, the best things that I can look back in time that I've done to change our program was buying semen on that bull that I couldn't afford, or borrowing money and buying the best bull I could get my hands on. And you all have a great tool that we didn't have when we started. You got hired hand software. Hell, you can pull hired hand software up, get progeny, and look in there, and in just a few seconds, you got one of the best tools at your fingertips to look at what kind of offspring is this bull throwing. Now be careful on that, because a lot of us don't register all the bulls, right? We may not put every calf or cow's hat on there just because it takes a lot of time. We've only kept, you may look at a cow and she's maybe 7 years old, there's only one progeny, it's a heifer, but they may not have put the bulls on there. Well, don't hold that against the cow. They may not have just registered the bull calves out of that, but y'all, you use these breeders for help. Don't be afraid to ask a veteran breeder for help. If you really think that you found a bull that can step your program up and you can't afford it, you can't afford not to have it. That's your answer right there. Go borrow the money and buy that bull, and you'll be so proud in 3 or 4 years that you made that move.
Hello. I think too, we spend a lot of time going around to these events and different shows, different sales. We take the old lady out to the movie, go out to dinner or whatever. You jump in your pickup truck, especially down in this area of the country, you have so many breeders in short driving distance of one another. Go look at the calves on the ground out of some of these bulls. You have several of these bulls that are not only solely owned, but they're partnership bulls. So go over and look at the partners bulls, or the calves out of that bull. And you start figuring out not only what that bull's producing, but is he also producing the kind of calves that you want to build a program with. We have cattle out there that are all different frame size. We have bulls out there that are structurally lighter muscle or flatter muscle bulls, and we got bulls out there that are heavier muscle bulls. We got bulls out there that aren't as good on their feet. We have others that are up on their toes good. When you can pick these cattle apart, and you'll find those calves out there that kind of all of a sudden the light goes off and you say, man, I really, really like these calves. Well, you may not be able to acquire that bull. You may not even be able to get semen out of that bull. But you can damn sure buy sons out of that bull, out of the right kind of cow that's going to take your program forward. So you've got a lot of options there. I think the biggest problem I see with a lot of breeders, we go to sales and you may buy a cow at this sale, and then you go to another sale and you buy another cow. And I look around and I'm watching how people are buying some of these cows, and they buy the cow last week, and she's a 5 frame score cow that weighs 950 pounds. And then they go to a sale next week, and they buy a 7 frame score cow that weighs 1350. And none of those cows look the same. And then you pull your hair out 3 years later while you're not building consistency within your cow herd. And all that stuff goes back to, I always tell new breeders, when you come into this, the best thing that you can possibly do is shut it down, don't get in a hurry, do a lot of homework, visit as many ranches as you possibly can, put a game plan together, have a go, figure out what direction you want to go in, before you ever pull the trigger and start buying some of these cows. But I see it time and time again, and it's so hard as new breeders because these cattle are so magnificent. You get so gung-ho and excited about it that you start pulling the trigger, and then 3 years down the road you go, oh crap, I didn't want to go in that direction. You know, so it costs you a lot of money, a lot of time, and then you have to start over with what you really want. So I guess my point is, take the time and the effort to visit as many herds, find out the kind of cattle that you like, see what these bulls are producing, and then shift it into high gear and go that route.
In my opinion, the bull is the heart of the breeding one of the people who are getting in the business, they need to look at a lot of bulls before they. Both of them. Sorry. You need to be looking for a bull that will match up to your herder cattle. And that's hard to do. I ain't too good with this microphone. I'm in trouble already, so. But if you notice, a lot of bulls ends up with our name on them because we're looking for bulls that we feel like make us go forward. And they're hard to find. But I think that you know, you want that bull to complement your herd, and it takes a lot of looking to find those kind of animals. Right there with a question. Mike?
My question is how do you guys handle your heifer programs to get these cows up to where we have good food cows? You know, once we figured out that pedigree that we want, is there a certain breeding age? Is there a certain way you feed these calves? How do you handle them from once you get that calf on the ground? And we've been talking a lot about bulls, but we keep forgetting about the other 50% of them cows, and then 50% of the heifers coming up through the herd that are going to be replacements. What's your program for raising these heifers so that they come out to be the right kind of cow we're looking for?
You know, the question is breeding age on these heifers. We have three breeding herds, and I have 2 breeding seasons, a 3-month spring and a 3-month fall. So we have an opportunity to use 6 different bulls a year. I really like to have a partnership in several bulls. I love my partnership bulls. I can use them, and when I'm not using them, my partner can use them. But talking about breeding, I used to breed my heifers at 2 years old. Well, every now and then I'd get a heifer that would breed late. Well, went back to breeding at 18 months, and they were the same thing. We talked about it a lot. Once we started breeding those heifers at 18 months, we didn't have that. We found that it's a lot better for us to breed those heifers at 18 months old. That's it. And if they're close, if they're between 15 and 18, I'd stick them in that group. Sometimes I think they might breed a little slower if you wait till they're 2. At least that's what we've noticed. I'd like the male to pick up on this when I'm done, because I sure like breeding those heifers at 18 months.
I think that heifer should be fertile, and the only variable you're going to have to watch in there, folks, is it can have a lot to do with the year you're having. If that heifer's 18 months and you've been in a 12-month drought, you gotta, there's not everything's got gray area, right? So you can't be breeding that heifer at 18 months and she's been trying to make a lunch, where a jackrabbit was starving. So, assuming she's in good flesh and you kept her in good flesh, that heifer should be ready at 18 months. But on colt, sir, on picking them out, it's kind of hard to sit up here and say, you've got different genetics, you've got genetics that the horns will come straight out, and that's the easiest thing to pick. You say, boy, that heifer's got enough horn, she's gonna make the cut. Then you could have a heifer's horn that came out like a little cow horn, but as a 4-year-old, that horn could twist and turn out to be the prettiest cow in the pasture, so that's kind of where you're gonna have to study your genetics. The hardest thing for y'all to do is to pull. The best thing you all can do is to pull. Hardest thing to do. We all want to say, yeah, but she's out of so-and-so, and she's out of so-and-so, and she's not really where I'd like to see her today, but send her down the road. You'll be so much better ahead later on. Make room for the one that's got it all, might produce it all. So pull hard. And the next thing you can do for yourselves is going to be real good. You finally raise that 2-year-old, it's going to ring a bell, right? And you're showing her to your buddies. You're proud of this 2-year-old you got. Sell it. Put her in a good sale, advertise her, and sell it. Let people know what you're doing at your house. That'd be some of the best moves you could ever do, is to sell that best heifer you can raise there. But picking them out, Mike, you can say there's something here too on helping him pick out the weanling heifers.
Yeah, I think all these cattle, especially when you're looking at the Longhorn breed, as a whole, most of your Longhorn breed of cattle are a little bit later maturing cattle than a lot of your British breeds or continental breeds. A lot of these heifers aren't coming into estrus quite as early. I know there are people that breed these heifers at 14, 15 months old and try to calve them too. I think it I'm not going to say every individual heifer is that way, but a large percentage of them, I think it sets these cattle back a little bit. We run a fall calving program and a spring calving program. So, if we're calving in April and May, we're going to carry those heifers through the following April and May, and we're going to have them serviced, up in November for a fall calf. Our fall calvers will take them through the following fall. They'll get bred the next spring. All these cattle are calving in that 28 to 30 month window. But I think you're missing the boat if you're not growing these heifers up to let them reach their maximum genetic potential. You'll stunt these cattle especially in our part of the world. We're running, same with you, we're running cool season grasses. They're a softer grass. They don't retain the nutrients like a lot of this Bermuda and some of these warmer season grasses like big blue stem. So I think our cattle definitely in our part of the world have to have a little extra nutrition to get to that point. I think as breeders, there's 3 categories that affect fertility in these cattle. Cattle that are too thin, cattle that are too fat, and cattle that are stagnant. And over the years, we found that you let these cows pull down a little bit after they calve, and then get those cows gaining about a half a pound a day leading into breeding season, those cattle will breed like clockwork. You get a cow that's stagnant. I see these guys that are doing a lot of embryo work, and they've got those cows in a program where they're constantly feeding those cattle. And you'll have these cattle where you'll start having some reproductive issues with these cattle. You'll start developing fat around their ovaries and fat in their udders. And I've seen a lot of these futurity heifers that, everybody wants to win, But at the end of the day, we still want to make these cattle into productive calves. But when you start looking at some of these 18, 20, 24-month-old heifers and stand behind them and look between their legs, and they're nowhere close to even developing an udder to deliver a calf, and we're getting fat pockets in those udders. I'll see these heifers, you'll get up there on the tail head, and you'll start where that little indentation is there along the tail head, that'll start filling in. When you get it to that point, you're going to have a lot of issues with reproduction in these cattle. On the flip side, cattle that are entirely too thin, they go into a survival mechanism. They shut down. It's their will to keep themselves alive, not raise a calf. So you're going to have some issues getting those cattle bred. So I guess to your point, pushing these cattle along, but not pushing them excessively. I also think that, I hear a lot of comments from people that, I'm going to bump the protein level up. I hear guys saying they're feeding these cows at a 16, 18% protein level. Well, it's kind of like looking at kids. A little 7, 8-year-old kid needs a whole lot more protein than somebody my age. You take a teenager, they're active in sports, whatever, they need adequate protein, bone development, structural development. But as we get older, it's the same way with cattle. A mature cow on forage needs no more than about a 10% protein to be able to break down and utilize that forage. Whereas a calf on the cow, she can get by with a 16% protein, giving her that extra protein to develop her structure or whatever. So what we found when we wean these calves, they'll go down to a 12, 13%, kind of a grower ration with a lot of oats in there. Corn is high in energy. Corn also has a tendency to put a lot of fat on cattle. That's why your feedlots finishing these steers out on a high corn diet. So just kind of keep in mind, stool samples. That's the best way to determine if that cow's getting adequate nutrition. If you go out in the pasture and that cow's blowing it through a screen door, she's getting more than adequate protein, probably way, way too much protein. I've also been to places where people think I stick a bale of hay out and that's good enough for the cow. Well, you go out there and look at that stool sample, if she's grunting and straining and trying to, pass fecal matter, and it's coming out hard as a rock, she's not getting anywhere close to enough protein. So you can tell a lot by the cow's nutrition just by examining that fecal matter coming out of the cow. So energy. Energy is your friend when it comes to reproduction in these cows. Whether it's doing AI work, natural service, doing embryo work, we bring in donor cows to flush. That protein is down there in that 10 or 11%, but we bump the energy content up in those cows. We'll add an extra mineral vitamin pack to those cows. We'll produce a lot higher quality embryos, and our conception rate putting them in recips is off the charts. Same way with taking care of your recips. I had a talk with Wayne some time ago, and I've been doing embryo work since 1984. Probably flushed 300 plus cows in my life. And I'd always run a breeder pack through my donor cows. Well, about 4 years ago, the light goes off, and I thought, you dumbass, why haven't you been running this through your recips? Well, we went from about 55, 56% conception rate on putting embryos in to about 72%, just by bumping that extra vitamins and mineral in on the recip. And when I go in and check a CL on a recip, and it's just phenomenal compared to the past, I know that cow's getting all the vitamins, minerals, nutrition, energy to give her the maximum ability to not only retain that embryo, but then to carry it to term. So you got to be careful because every part of the country has different forages. We're up in that part of the country, we're on, cool season grasses. They look beautiful. They're always lush and green, but the fescue pastures we run, that's probably the most undesirable forage in the whole country. It's nothing, you know, there's certain times of the year the sugar level comes up, like in the fall, and that grass is really good. In the spring, when it's lush and green, it's going through them like water. So you got to be able to look at that cow, look at that stool sample. You know, there's times like when the grass is this tall and it's time to turn cows out, you better keep some dry matter out there to those cows, or you'll watch those cows on that lush grass just start losing weight. A cow, you know, a 1,200-pound cow, she needs about 21 and a half pounds of dry matter a day just to maintain her body weight. Well, when you got grass out there that's got 70% water in it, that cow does not have a big enough stomach to consume enough of that grass to obtain enough dry matter out of it to keep her body weight. So she's got to go downhill. So just paying attention to little things like that. And they're not going to go over there and just go to town on that bale of hay, but when they need some extra dry matter, they'll go over there. Well, then late May, early June, when that grass starts hardening up, you'll watch those cows just back off. They won't even touch that bale of hay. So you know, it's just watching your cow, you know. But to your point, I think, yes, you do have to grow these heifers. I think it does put them to a point where you give them the best possible way to reach their genetic potential.
So still on the same subject, I love the securities. I think it's one of the best things that ever happened to our industry. But on the second hand, in order to have those cattle really look good for the securities, they have to be in beautiful shape. And when I'm going to grow my heifers with that much feed and that much weight, I find it very important to breed them at 18 months. I want them to be in a productive mode where a lot of that's going to go to having calf instead of going to fat. And I think if you keep a heifer that kind of weight on her till she's 2 and wait to breed her, you're going to get too much fat built up. This way you can have the best of both worlds. You can keep your animal productive and you can keep her in shape to sell in the security. And you need to be very aware and where you're located. I'm in southern Oklahoma where our main grass is Bermuda. Now, I'm not Bermuda, that's a dry country grass. It does good in the heat of the summer. It's a good, really good dry country grass. But I've found in my breeding pasture, I keep a liquid feed. So all summer, they're on just grass and liquid feed. They'll only eat about a pound of that stuff a day per animal, but it just keeps a little extra bloom on them. They don't get over fat, but they really look healthy. It depends on the kind of grass you got and where you live. But with the type of grass I have, that liquid feed is a great addition to just keep that extra bloom on them. Now, if you live up north where you got cold weather grass, Mike, I don't have that much knowledge. Mike can tell you a lot more about northern grasses and feeding your cattle up there. But in the winter time now, I keep hay in front of those cows 24/7. I never let it. And I like to have a round bale. I like to have at least one round bale for every 5 or 6 animals. So I'll have several run bales at each pasture. I never let them run out. And then for 4 months out of the year in the winter, I give them 5 pounds of 20% cubes every day, 7 days a week. But in the summer, it's just grass and a lifting. Come on, folks, give us some more questions.
You've talked about struggle scores and reporting struggle scores. One of the things that we see out here, and a lot of the new breeders may not realize it, is udder condition. You know, when we should cull a cow because of an udder, or is a great big udder out there the best, is that milking us? It's just a question that really stands up to as these new breeders look at these cows, explain what a good udder and when to cull that cow because of her udder or she never should have been a cow.
Yeah, I'm a real stickler on udder attachments. You look at a lot of the longhorn cows, and you'll see some of these cows that have what looks to be an extremely full udder, and then you look at the calf at her side, and it's a knothead. Then you'll look at another cow, and she looks like she's been dried up for 3 months, and she's got a 550-pound calf at her side. So just looking at a cow and determining the milking ability of that cow is almost impossible. But I will tell you that by doing the right homework, selecting bulls out of cows that do have picture-perfect udder attachments, and I guess the easiest way to what I consider a perfect udder attachment, if you took a batting helmet and you turned that helmet upside down and you stuck it up under that cow, and you want that udder to kind of extend almost into their belly. It doesn't have to be a deep udder. You'll find that these shallower udders, you'll have a whole lot less problem as that cow gets some age on her than you do when you have these heifers that their udders are hanging down. Teat size is another factor. You know, I get tickled when I hear people talk about, you know, they see a first calf heifer and her teat's already as big as your thumb, and it's hanging down 4 or 5 inches. Well, by the time that cow's had her 3rd, 4th, 5th calf, she's got an udder that looks like Dolly Parton without her bra. You know, it's hanging down to her knees, and you're struggling to get that calf to nurse because the teats have blew out, and all that's genetic. All that's a correlation, a ligament attachment in that udder that strengthens those teats and keeps that udder tucked up under there. And so I actually had a conversation with Jimmy, 4 or 5 years ago, about I was in the process of developing a bull to fix udder attachments on cows, and you know, Jimmy being the jokester he is, he said, well, I don't care about that. All I care is it raise a big, healthy, stout calf. And I'm like, well, Jimmy, why wouldn't you want your cake and eat it too, you know? I'm not saying I take away the milk production, but I think if you really study these cows that these bulls are coming out of, and you can slowly over time start fixing these other attachments in these cows where you have less problems with them. And you're going to get your outliers. You're going to get cattle from time to time out of those bulls, and you're going to scratch your head and say, hey, where did that udder come from? Well, the simplest solution is probably turn around and look at her mom, because she's probably got a terrible udder. But those are just some of the little things that I think as breeders, what we talked about earlier about feed issues and you know, fleshing ability in these cattle. I've always got tickled. You know, anybody can keep a feed bucket in front of these cows and keep them looking good 24/7, 365 days. But if you'll run your longhorn operation like a good commercial guy, it enables you can go through, let's say you got 10 heifers out there and they all relatively the same horn, the same bodies, same frame score, they all have a lot of color on them. But you got 4 of those heifers that, you know, a strong wind to blow them over just because they don't have the fleshing ability there to maintain their weight. And the best solution to that is you put these cows through a tough environment. When times get tough, the cream always rises to the top. And those cattle that are naturally easier fleshing, that can still raise that calf, well, those are going to be your most profitable cows based on other things, all the other things being equal. So those are my first heifers that end up going to the sale barn, because I don't want to have to keep a feed bucket in front of those cows as they turn into mature cows in production. So, you know, it's just, I don't know, I guess I have that beef mindset and try to run the longhorns like that.
You know, when you're talking about other attachment and bags, that's something that I look at very close and I think most serious breeders do. And if you start studying pretty other attachments, pretty bags, you're going to find that that comes from the bull as much as he has as much. I've had bulls that would produce a bad bag or a bad, and I've had bulls that would improve other attachments and bags on cows. So you want to look at the bull just as strong as you do. If you got a bull that's producing a lot of bad bags and bad batter, then you need to get rid of him. I don't care how good everything else looks. Because the bull, and the dairy people will tell you this too, he's 50% of everything, and that includes bags and other attachments. Give that man a speaker so we can hear him. You got it? Put it on mine.
All right. So I think, hello everyone, and it's really nice to be here. Thanks for meeting everyone. But I would like the five of you, with all the experience that you have, I'd like for you to explain and explore a little bit what sometimes I've been hearing more and more people saying maybe about horn circumference at the base, according to breed standards. Do you think the horn circumference with the horn tip or without the horn tip is something that we should be worried about? Maybe getting too extreme? Should we start culling animals that have large bases or not? What do you feel about the extreme horn bases?
I like a horn that fits the animal. Everybody has what they like, and everybody breeds for what they like. I do not like the exceptionally big horn. Now you take a bull like Cowboy Chuck, he's 107 inches. So he has an 18-inch horn base, which fits beautifully. It looks great on him. Now, an 18-inch horn base on a 60-inch horn bull wouldn't look so good. But I like a moderate horn base, but yet you don't want little skinny pencil horns because they break. I like a nice heavy horn that's not overdone, and I don't want a bubble horn. That's something. But I think horn circumference is one of the easiest things to breed for. All you have to do is breed to a bull and a cow that are both kind of carrying that gene, and you'll get it. But I like to have just a beautiful, moderate horn that's fairly heavy from the head clear to the tip, but not overdone. On a perfect animal on a perfect day. But everybody breeds for what they like.
Here's a little fun fact while we're here at the Horn Showcase and stuff. Dr. Mike Settles in 1985 had a cow called Anita, and he thought she might be the biggest horn cow in the breed. And Dr. Mike Settles was a very humble and gentleman kind of a man. And he drove all over the country and paid out of his pocket to do a full page in the journal back in the day. And he said, send all your measurements in if you've got something over 50. And I'll come to the ranch and measure it. Let's find out what we've got out there. Well, move forward, the longest horn cow in the breed at that time ended up being just right over 59 inches tip to tip in 1985. Okay, in 2024, You've got cows over 100 now. And that sounds like phenomenal. But I want to tip my hat to you breeders. That's just a little bit over an inch a year. We've made these just a little bigger over an inch a year. But back in '85, it was the biggest corn cow after was 59 inches. Man, I remember when I first got my 60-inch cow, I just sat out in pasture and looked at her. I thought that was the coolest thing and the biggest thing I'd ever seen.
It's unbelievable how the horn growth has come. That was an article in 1985. It's interesting because they had everybody send in their measurements for their biggest horn cow. Well, so then, once they got them, they sent inspectors out to measure those cows to get an official measurement. Well, in the article it says the one thing they learned is none of them had as much as they said when they sent them in. So, Twist 21 ended up being the biggest horn cow in the high 50s. And that's in 1985, where today, I believe we're, 113, 114. And that's an awful lot in a short, that seems like a short amount of time to grow that much.
First of all, I would like to apologize to Josh. I told him that I have memory loss problems, and I thought I could sit up here and do a okay job on. And that's not the case. If you walk up to me and I look at you, sometimes I don't know who you are, but I do, but I don't think I do. And I never dreamed that I couldn't tell you every cow's name, number to her number, but I can't do it anymore. So if you happen to get in a conversation with me, I'm likely to go blank. And, there's nothing I can do about it, obviously. But I wanted to apologize to everybody for that, because I shouldn't have took it on, you know what I mean? In fact, me and my wife were at the VA, the person who, checks it. And so anyway, I'm sorry about my inability to say, but I hope you'll talk to me sometime. But anyway, I sit here and I'm going, all these things.
Yeah, Jimmy, he's a walking dictionary of this Longhorn breed. For years, every time a great bull would come on the market, Jimmy'd be at their doorstep buying a bull calf out of that bull. Every time. And he's put together one of the greatest herds in the industry. And he just did it out of a lot of studying and being a hell of a cowman. I gotta tell you, the first time I met Jimmy, well, we knew each other vaguely, but he come to the ranch and he wanted a son coach. he picked one out, and we've been very close friends ever since. And again, we've had more than fun together than you could think about. Well, that son of Coach produced one of the most famous cows in the breed, a cow named 402. And great news.
Do y'all have any questions about the steps to put a cow in a sale or anything like that? That's one thing about it. We got to breed them. We want to do the best we can, produce the best female and male we can. But is there any questions out there? Are y'all comfortable with how to put a cow in a registered sale?
People come to our farm and they look at cattle and the first thing they want to do is buy cattle. That's been mentioned here before. They want to buy cattle before they're ready for cattle. You need to go around and look at different ranches and see their setup and understand how to get cattle to the catch pen, how to configure a catch pen. You need a chute that was mentioned. We need a chute because something's going to happen. If you're going to need to doctor an animal or something, they're going to get hurt or whatever. But I'd say one of the most important things is just to be ready for cattle before you buy cattle. Be ready for cattle.
Story. Jimmy and Terry, they've come to the house several times. One time we're in a back pasture, and Jimmy just got a brand new, Terry just got a brand new truck. Well, we're crossing this dam, and at the end of it, his trailer hitch got stuck, and the trailer was, well, now, if you know Terry, he really takes care of things. I mean, if his truck gets a spot of dirt on it, he can get out and wipe it off, and everything's perfect. Well, he's trying to get that truck just going go. I said, well, Terry, let me in there. And at that time, I didn't realize how big he was. I get in it, I throw it in reverse, and I throw it, and I shoot back, and I put him forward, and I floor it, and I went forward. Finally, that thing shot out of there, and I got out of the truck, and I left it. Jimmy and Nancy are just laying on the ground, rolling and laughing. I looked at Terry, and his eyes are that big around, and we named that little area Terry's Gulch. And to this day, that's Terry's Gulch. I've been thinking about putting a sign on it.
I think all that's subjective to the breeder himself. I look around, I see a lot of people that like really big frame cows. I see other guys that, are more moderate, 900,000 pound cows. I think structure on these cattle need to be the same whether they're big or small. And, if you really want to pick a cow apart, I think that these higher volume, deeper body cows possess a lot of capacity. I like cows that are real clean front-ended cows. I like cows that have a tremendously great tail set on them. I had an argument one time with Daryl Dickinson about the tail sets on some of these cattle, and you know, he at that time was kind of advocating for a kind of a sloped off tail set a little bit, and I think he was getting the concept a little bit wrong. You know, you want that slope between the hooks and the pins, but you still want a level tail set. I think that, you know, udder attachments, cows that need to be really sound on their feet, up on their toes, navel, yeah. And some of these heifers will be born with a little navel, and then as they grow into it, they'll totally go away. But it's, in my opinion, it's a preference. You know, I think to each their own, and everybody likes something a little bit different. I like a middle of the road kind of a cow, a mature cow that weighs in that 1,250 pound range, with maybe a 6 frame store cow that is always in good flesh, rain, snow, sleet, you know, whatever time of year it is. And, I can't stand a cow that's a hard-keeping cow that when times get tough, that cow pulls down to nothing, because then you got a lot of input cost in getting that cow back up into good shape. So just kind of an all-around, easy fleshing, good-footed, deep body, clean-fronted cow, you know, really strong in the loin. Those cows seem to have a lot of longevity to them. You can go through this barn and you can probably pick out a lot of cows that are made like that. You'll see some cows back there that make you cringe, you know. But it's cattle structure's no different than horse structure. You know, I've heard Bob talk about the trapezoid in horses and how you want all those numbers equal. Well, cattle are the same way, you know, and if one of those pieces are off a little bit, you'll see a twitch in the way this cow walks, or you'll see her when she stops and stands, she'll be off on her feet a little bit. I think as Longhorn breeders, we kind of sometimes overlook a lot of that stuff because of what's sitting on top of their head. You know, we've been accustomed to just letting some of that stuff slide. But I think as breeders, you know, somebody brought up earlier about EPDs. I grew up in the Angus breed. EPDs were common knowledge. I remember in 1972, a gentleman asked my grandfather when EPDs came out in the Angus breed if we were going to chase EPDs. He said, no, he said, we're not going to chase EPDs. He said, we're going to use them as a tool, but we're not going to steer away from what got us up to this point. And at the time, you know, that was probably 40 years of breeding registered seed stock. Where we built our reputation in the Angus business was great other attachments and fleshability and longevity that a lot of the other Angus guys kind of just overlooked. So we started incorporating EPDs, and we would use them as tools to maybe bump weaning weights a little bit or add a little bit more milk production. And I think the biggest problem with the Longhorn breed, I would love nothing more than if we couldn't establish a set of EPDs for the Longhorn. And like Terry said, you know, the only way that we're going to consistently improve this is through DNA and genetic makeup as predictability. The problem is, you know, most breeds that are doing this as a profitability basis on cash flow and making a living from it, they're using those EPDs because it benefits their pocketbooks. In the Longhorn breed, you know, we're looking at our pocketbook as putting horn on these cattle and topping sales or selling cattle from that aspect. But the biggest problem with trying to establish a set of EPDs in the Longhorn breed, we don't have enough people that's going to keep accurate data on these cattle at birth weights and weaning weights and, you know, weighing these calves when they need to be weighed. And, you know, EPDs are only as accurate as the information that's put in them. So you can't base your overall how you're going to run your program on a set of EPDs when your accuracy's down there at 7%. You know, we need enough data on these cattle, you know, out of certain sires that have 2, 3, 4, 500 progeny on the ground, and all of them's been weighed at birth, all of them's been weighed at weaning time, And then we can start developing a little bit more accurate basis on what these cattle are truly possessing. But until that point, my suggestion is doing a lot of what we do. We do a lot of in-house data. You know, we'll weigh these calves at weaning time, and we'll adjust all their weights on a 205-day weight. That way it puts all these calves on equal footing, or all the cows on equal footing. You know, we're gonna give a first calf heifer a 60-pound bonus on her weaning weight of her calf versus a 7-year-old cow in the prime of her life. So if you got a cow, you got this heifer that calves in March, and you got the cow that you're weaning the calf off of, the calf in May, and you just stick them on the scale and say, well, the heifer's calf outweighs the cow by 5 pounds, that doesn't mean anything. You know, naturally, a first calf heifer is not going to produce as much milk as a 7-year-old cow in the prime of her life. So you have to adjust all that data on an equal basis to be able to determine, is that heifer a better milking mama than what that 7-year-old cow, or vice versa? Well, what that enables you to do, if you have a group of heifers and you're going to keep 50% of those heifers and you're going to sell the other 50%, and you're only basing your decision on the amount of horn that they have, and all things considered equal, they all have basically the same amount of horn, well, naturally, you're going to want to keep the heifers as replacements out of your females that are doing the best job of milking. And the only way that you can determine that is start keeping some data yourself, because we, as an industry, do not have that information out there on the vast majority of the bulls in the industry.
Hello. Yeah, in the longhorn industry, we all want the perfect animal. We want the conformation, the color of the horn shape. And I think if you look at different people's breeds or herds, you're going to kind of see, like, everybody has pet peeves. There'll be one or two little things that bother you. Two of the pet peeves I have is I can't stand the bad test. I like a cow to have a beautiful top line and a beautiful tail set. And I don't like excess skin, especially on the sheep. Those are things I look at. But then you want to look at everything. But everybody has a pet peeve, and it'll vary from one breeder to the next. But the main thing, the main goal for all of us is to try to raise that perfect animal. And it's not an easy task that we're all working on. Any more questions?
Hey, I'd like to touch on something before we end. It's getting really popular, you know, to have partnership bulls. And I want to speak to partnership bulls for just a second. We have been fortunate enough to be in on some of the best bulls in the industry. And what we want to also do is protect our partners as well. And we need to do that by doing trick tests before we send it to the next farm. I think it's very important. The commercial people, it's a pretty big problem with trick out there in commercial bulls and such as that. But as Dale was talking about these high-dollar bulls, and I tell you, it's the best thing that ever happened to us to be able to buy into partnership bulls and to be able to move these bulls around and use them. They're tools. So not one bull is going to fit your cow, I guarantee you. It's such a diversity in these cows that it takes several different bulls to cover your cows. And so if you get into a partnership situation, I think it should be just mandatory that you do trick tests before you send it to the next guy. It's just that's protecting him, and if there's a problem, you found it. So I just wanted to mention that. These partnership bulls are great, but we need to protect each other as we enjoy these bulls.
What I really like about partnership bulls is, number one, like to have access to a variety of bulls. I don't want a ton of bulls on the ranch all the time. So I have partnerships probably in 10, 15 different bulls. But all my paid partners are people I enjoy working with and that have the same goals. And when you have them at the ranch, when you're using them, when you're done using them, they go to the other partner. And the friendships that Pam and I have made with partnership bulls are amazing. We've made more great friendships and lifetime friendships with partnership bulls where we can all enjoy these wonderful genetic packages and we can all improve our cattle, we can improve our herds. And that bull's going to get a shot at 2 or 3 different herds a year. It's good for the industry, it's really good for the breeder, but I'm never done looking for another bull. I'm looking for another bull all the time, and I'm always looking to add another one. Any other questions, folks?
Can you? Yes. We're 4 years in right now, and don't want to be a 5-year statistic. But we've got a small herd of 20 right now in Kansas. And I guess what I'm thinking of is marketable. You know, you can go out here and you can get a young bull, as you gentlemen have said, that's a grandson or a great-grandson of the great Cowboy Tough Checks or whatever, and put him on your cows. But what makes them marketable, you know, when you go to the sale barns, when you go to these sales, I mean, are you going to just sell $800 ropers that he's a great-grandson of the Cowboy Tough Checks? You know, so he's got a nice line of females. You know, you guys talk about partner, but not every bull fits every cow in your herd, as you just said. So, as a 4-year breeder, where can we go to make our heifers? I mean, ropers are going to be ropers, we understand that, but what can we do to make our heifers more marketable and get our name out there? You know, if I go to a sale, lots of times I'll look for these breeders that have a history, because we don't have a line, you know, for that. So I look for the breeders that I know are reputable, that if I'm going to buy a heifer or a cow, that they come from them. How do I make mine stand out like that?
One of the smartest investments a breeder, especially a new breeder, can do is buy the best bull that you can afford. And buy a partnership bull with somebody that's marketing their cattle, where you can benefit from their marketing and yours. But partner with them on a young bull that they're excited about and get that in your herd. And then I think the most important thing for a young breeder is to call hard. Anything you have that's not producing with any consistency, if it's anything that I consider low end, right now the commercial market's really great. And that's a good place to go with your low end. But if you take something to a sale, take a good one. Take a good one to the sale, to a longhorn sale. But I think the fastest way to really take a new and a young herd to the next market, that is to partner with a quality breeder on a quality young bull that they're excited about. They're promoting it as well as you are promoting it. And you can take advantage of what they're doing, and they can take advantage of having a great partner. And I think like I remember when Jimmy, every time a great bull would pop up in the industry, one thing they could count on, Jimmy would be there buying a son. And that's how, he didn't go buy a bunch of expensive cows. He started out with a really nice set of cattle that he kept adding to that herd with bulls out of whatever the best producing stuff in the industry was at that time. He'd get a bull out of that. And I think adding those genetics to your herd and don't breed the same bull for 6 years. That's why I like to have partnership bulls, because I breed a spring breeding and a fall breeding. I got a 90-month spring breeding, a 90-day spring breeding, a 90-day fall breeding. I got 3 breeding passes. That gives me an opportunity. I could breed up to 6 bulls in 1 year if I needed to. If you just have a small one herd, you can do, and that way, my bulls, I have 2 90-day periods that I don't need a bull. Well, that works great in a partnership, and with the partnership, you give me 2 or 3 different partnerships. When you bring something new in, don't just buy one bull and sit on it for years. That's what they did 30 years ago. In today's market, partnership bulls are the way to go. And I'll tell you what, some of the closest friendships Pam and I have been through partnership bulls.
One thing I got to say, maybe you're new in the breed and there's bulls out there that you don't have to breed to. Maybe you've seen a bull out there. Well, you need to approach that person that owns that bull, maybe and buy some semen. I don't know exactly where you're at, but I tell you, if you've got dairy people near you, dairymen, they're some of the best breeders because they do it every day. And practice makes perfect. So find a bull that you really like, you think will work well with your cattle. Maybe find somebody in your area that would breed the cattle on your farm. It's right there. It's less stressful. You're not moving them around. And I think your conception rate will be even better just being right there on your farm. You're not stressing the cattle and just right there. Y'all can watch them for heat and such as that. And you'll learn a lot. And you can breed a really good bulls through the AI process.
There. That was kind of the vibe that we're starting to get, with year 4, is that maybe we need to be in the AI part of it in order to be competitive. Because, with a herd of 20, and I'm sure you ever said we go to and buy something seems like that. You can expose to multiple bulls. So that was kind of my question of where I was going with this is it time for us to start venturing to AI to these other bulls?
One of the things that's worked well for us is when we're looking for a partner on a partnership bull is find somebody that has an opposite breeding season than we do. So, we're in the South, so we like to breed in the wintertime. And the people in the North, they want that bull to come south in the wintertime. So we found out this really works well if we can find partnerships with people in the North, and then it just works out perfect. We'll have the bull for 6 months, they'll have the bull for 6 months, and everybody's happy. So that's what you kind of want to look for in partners as well, that it works for everybody, not just for yourself.
Any other questions?
I think that option of AI is a great strategy. I think that you can kind of pick your cows apart. If you got a variation of different body types, different sizes or whatever, I still think, I've heard this for years that, I'm going to AI, so I don't need a very good cleanup bull. I think that's the worst possible scenario. I think that even if you're AI in your cows, you're going to have a percentage of those cows that you're not going to get AI. So you still invest in a really top-end, if you want to call them a cleanup bull. I would look at my cleanup bull as the same type of bull as I was going to breed if I wasn't doing AI. Because you're still going to carry that value over to his calves, whether you get 3, 4, 5 calves out of him versus the low-end cleanup bull that every calf's going to go straight to the sale barn. you hit a while ago, you were talking about how to market some of these cattle. With us putting on a couple of sales throughout the year, we get people that will want to consign a cow to a particular sale. I think as a breeder, you need to look at what sale that cow's going. And if you had whether it's a 2-year-old heifer or a 6-year-old cow, where does that animal stand within the breed for her particular age? Is she an elite heifer? Is she a middle of the road heifer? Is she a lower end heifer? There are different variations of sales throughout the country. When you start putting a mediocre heifer in a high-end sale, a lot of those animals get completely overlooked. You can take that same heifer and put her in a lower-end sale, and she may be one of the standouts. So you'll see some of these cattle that at one sale are struggling to get a bid, where at the other sale, she may be one of the top individuals that's selling that sale. So learn how to split these cows up, different sales. Dale's always really good at making a point about it. If you're proud enough of that cow and you want the person buying that cow to be proud of her, bring those cows to these sales in tremendous good shape. It sends a message to other breeders that if you put a cow in there and she's 300 pounds underweight, what makes you think that guy's going to want to bid on your cow if you didn't have any more desire to keep her in good shape yourself? So have enough pride and enough gumption to bring those cows in tremendous good shape. You'll find, and I've noticed this over the years, if you look at that cow, you know her pedigree, you know her production history, you know how much horn she's got on her head. I've seen a lot of these cows that come to these sales in really good shape that will actually bring $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 more because that cow's in great shape. Doesn't make her any better cow, but it sends that message to all the breeders sitting out here in the audience, hey, that's a damn good looking cow.
Yeah, in regards to horn, that's why we're here. Given Bob what you said about that, you know, there's a lot of horn out there. They're gonna put out horn no matter what we do at this point. The tip-to-tip measurement, is that something that time has come in moving to something that's more about total horn, quality of horn, structure of horn versus breeding animals with horns that shoot straight out to the side and don't really have a lot of structural integrity and really don't benefit the animal at all? Has it come time to start influencing a change in regards to that rudimentary measurement of tip to tip?
You know, I love tip to tip. I breed for cattle. I love twist, I love motion, but I love tip to tip. You're gonna find on your sales, your tip to tip animals are gonna bring more money than your high horn cattle. Although, that's just a fact. But I love a beautiful, I've got a heifer right now that has blue poodles of horn, but it's going straight up. And she's just 2, but I really feel that they're gonna roll up now. Now right now she's a high horn heifer. By the time she's 5, she's gonna be a big time tip to tip heifer. And a lot of times, like in your yearlings, you might keep the tip-to-tip heifers and get rid of the higher horned heifers. Sometimes you're making a big mistake, because at 3 or 4, they'll start rolling out. By the time they're 5 or 6, one of them might be the biggest tip-to-tip cow in your herd. That's another advantage to breeding a herd of cows for a long time, is you kind of know what they're gonna do. If it's new animals that you're having the first calves out of them, it's kind of like an Easter egg hunt. You got to wait and see. But that's one advantage in having a family. Like, I've got families that go back 6 generations. Well, I have a very good idea. Some of them are a little high at 1 and 2, at 3, that tip. And always look at that tip. That tip will tell you what direction they're going. That growth will follow the tip. And some cows you can market as yearlings and 2-year-olds. Some cows you need to keep them till they're 5 or 6 to get the maximum out of them. But if they're a good enough cow to keep till they're 5 or 6, you're probably going to raise some pretty good calves out of her till she's 5 or 6. But you might need to wait till that age before she brings a true value. That's just part of raising them, learning them, knowing them. That comes with them. The tip-to-tip will always be the ones that bring more money. That's the whole thing. As a breeder, get to knowing your cow. Because you're going to find, like I have a cow named Lady Grey. Her calves have 2 horn shapes. They'll either go straight out, or they'll look like a billy goat at a year old. And then by the time they're 5, they'll just be twisted all the crazy and going straight out. They'll go up and then roll out. And you can predict her calves, they're going to be one of those 2 horn shapes. The flatter horn shape will sell real good young. The higher horn shape, wait till they're 5 or 6 to sell them. But in that period from 2 to 6, we can raise and bang up calves out of it. So having them hang around until she's 5 or 6 is no problem. And that's just learning your cattle. But you're not, if you're trading and you're only raising 1 or 2 calves out of one and you're selling them, you'll never learn that. Keep those cows that are with some predictability and then learn them. And it just makes you a brighter future. Does that make sense? It does to me, but not everything makes sense to me. I believe we're done. We've run out of questions, folks. We have enjoyed this a bunch, and you guys have been great.